Welcome to Getting In, a College Coach podcast. I'm Kyra Tyler. I've been with College Coach since 2005, working with students and their families on the college application process. Was I here last week? Yes. But I promise I won't be here next week in case you're ready for a more familiar voice. In the meantime, I'm excited for today. In our first segment, I'll be joined by three of my longtime colleagues and friends who will be talking about college admissions and counseling then and now. Then we'll take a trip to Hawaii to talk about colleges and universities there. And we'll wrap with a nod to July as Save Smart Month, which I didn't even know existed, but glad to have it here. All right, so I'm going to welcome our first guests. They are Karen Spencer, Nicole Doyle, and Tova Javetz. Welcome, ladies. Happy to have you.
Hi.
Hello. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So Karen, can you kick us off by sharing a little bit about your background before BHCC, College Coach, and since? That would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So yes, hi everybody. My name's Karen Spencer. Before coming to College Coach, I was an admissions officer at both Franklin and Marshall College, which is a small liberal arts college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and then I was the assistant director of admission at Georgetown University in DC. Before coming to College Coach 20 years ago, both Kyra and I celebrated our 20-year anniversaries this last month. We were in each other's pledge class, as we like to say, with a few of our fellow colleagues. And yeah, so 20 years, and I live in Northern Virginia, and I just went through this process with my eldest daughter. So I've now lived this both professionally and personally, which is an eye-opening experience, even if you do this for a living. So yeah, that's me.
Great. I won't say her name, but huge congratulations to her.
Thank you.
So excited for her start.
Oh, I talk about Libby all the time. You can say Libby. Okay. It's fine.
Congrats, Libby. All right. Nicole, you're next. A little bit of an intro, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole Doyle. I'm located in upstate New York. Prior to coming to Bright Horizons College Coach, I was in admissions at Holy Cross for 4 years. I've done some part-time work at Skidmore admissions office. I've actually been with Bright Horizons College Coach in many different roles for over 20 years. And my fun tidbit on the heels of Karen is I'm about to start the college process with my oldest son. Yay. So he just finished school last week. So I've given him a little bit of a break, but you may hear about Jack in the future over the next year as we navigate this process.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Tova.
Hi, everyone. I'm the newbie. I only just started at Bright Horizons College Coach 11 years ago. So I'm really junior on this team. And before that, spent about 10 years in college admissions. And what none of us are talking about is that math isn't mathing. How can I have been here for 11 years, been in admissions for 10, and I'm only 25? Like,
unclear.
It's unclear to me.
Weird math.
Those first 10 years were spent at a mix of alma maters. At my first undergrad, I stayed because I didn't want to graduate and worked at Barnard College for a number of years as an admission officer. Then I moved all the way across the street to Columbia University, where I was an adjunct admission reader and committee member. Then I moved up to the Bronx, where I was the associate director of admission at Fordham University, and then all the way to New Jersey, where I was the associate director and director of operations at Montclair State University. But now live in Savannah, Georgia, which is not the Northeast.
It's not. It's the home of the Savannah Bananas.
It is the home of the Savannah Bananas. I just went to a game last week, actually.
Which my daughter, they were up here in DC, and my daughter went to a Savannah Bananas game just last week. So there you go.
Shout out Savannah Bananas. All right, let's get started. And I'll let Nicole kick us off with this question. While it's interesting all of it that you all have all worked at religiously affiliated colleges, I think that's really interesting. I am curious, Nicole, we have all had a really long tenure here at College Coach. What, if we think about working in admissions pre-COVID, right? So we'll rewind our brains a little bit. What was your favorite part of your role? And I guess the flip side of that is, what about as a counselor in your current role pre-COVID?
That's a great question. I loved working with the students directly. Like, I loved meeting students. I loved interviewing, like at both of the places I worked at. I loved that personal connection. And so it was great for me to meet students in person. And I was actually during COVID still doing a little bit of the interviews. And so for Skidmore, it shifted from in-person to virtual interviews. And I think that was what was interesting, was that it was a little less personalized, and we had to pivot and be able to focus on getting to know these students, but in a different capacity. And I think that's been the change. Like, I still love working with students and families now in the current role, but I think it's in admissions right now, there's less interviewing, there's less personal contact. Many of the colleges are not visiting as many high schools like we used to spend. I was actually just talking about this the other day. I used to spend days creating MapQuest. Now I'm showing how old I am. MapQuest directions from high school to high school to be able to find them. Sometimes I couldn't find them even after the MapQuest directions, but I loved those interactions with students and families and counselors. And so that's probably the biggest difference. Is I just don't know if, like, as far as an admissions office, it is as personalized. And there's so many more students applying to college, but I think those were the key things for me, the personalization of the process.
Yeah. There's not only more students applying to college that we know we're like on the precipice of a big demographic cliff, but more students applying to more colleges, right? So that is a whole 14-hour conversation that we could have at some other point. Tova, what do you think about the question that I posed?
I think about MapQuest as well.
What if you did visits with Waze? Oh my gosh. Also, no excuse for being late.
Yeah.
Missing a visit. I mean, why? How? It's impossible.
Why did all the gas station people know how to get everywhere? Like, when I got lost, how did I find they always knew. I don't know.
Directions, like you would actually get, like left, straight.
Yeah.
I really did miss also, I loved the in-person visits, and I'll jump ahead to when I switched to this side of the desk. I loved going out to different companies and presenting and educating families where they were at physically and emotionally, but actually being able to be with them in the room, give a presentation during lunch, and then spend the rest of the afternoon meeting with families one-on-one. But you know what? I feel like I also had a lot more conversation about prestige and getting into these few schools. And that, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about what has changed, but I feel like that was much more of the conversation than I find it to be today. And I don't miss that part of it as much.
Got it. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Karen, what do you think?
I was thinking about this last night, and I think one of the things I miss, which is also something I don't miss, so this is a kind of a double-edged sword. I did miss like committee discussing kids, especially at Georgetown, where every single kid was really well qualified, so you had to make tough decisions, and that was kind of the side was always not always great, because the kid you were advocating for might not have made it through committee, and that was the flip side of that. But I loved hearing how other people viewed things, what appealed to them, what didn't appeal to them, things that stuck out to them that I was like, that didn't resonate with me, but it did with you. So I just like the committee discussion of kids who were just really exceptional. So that was probably one of my favorite parts. My favorite part here, I would say, like Tova, I miss traveling to places. I loved talking with people in person. For our clients is much in person, so I do miss that aspect. That was probably one of my favorite things as well. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Tova, I'm curious, from our current work with students, what do you think is the biggest change that we have seen happen? Like, let's say like the last 3-ish years, not like in the depths of the pandemic, but, around undergraduate admissions and the process. What would you say?
I think I kind of gave a teaser to this already. But I'm wondering so I'm curious if you guys see this also, or if this is purely anecdotal with my own projection, some of my own priorities and value shifting, but I see families and students so much more excited, not just willing to, but so much more excited to talk about local state options. As even some of their larger flagship universities are becoming unattainable for your standard average A/B student. Being really excited about and open to talking about schools outside of the most highly selective, and really thinking about value, and families no longer being so quick to see the financial value in investing in $80,000, $90,000. Now, granted, it wasn't that price 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but it was 3 years ago. And I find more and more every day I'm having conversations with families who say, well, why would I spend 85 if we can spend 30 and have the same outcomes? And I
Yeah.
love getting into those conversations, thinking more about what students can get out. Again, I'm curious what you guys think. Is that some of my own thinking as I'm getting closer and closer to paying for this myself as a parent? Is it living in Georgia where UGA is such a huge deal and they won 2 national championships in a row? So maybe it's my climate. I'm very curious to see if others are seeing that trend too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start. I sort of agree. I'm not seeing that necessarily where I live. I live in the Chicago area. I wouldn't say that Illinois, schools have really, I mean, the University of Illinois, the flagship campus has gotten much more selective, but I don't know that I hear a lot of like rampant excitement about it or more conversation about it. Like people are still excited about Loyola and DePaul and Northwestern. But I do think that to push this a little bit further, what you sort of picked up on is that it's really about a demographic shift south, which, like that is apparent in so many ways for a variety of reasons that, is it Bama TikTok? Is it weather? Is it what? I don't know what it is. Because that doesn't fall into what I am interested in. But I do believe that that is a piece of it, is that people, there's more of an acceptance of someone from Indiana to look at not just IU or Purdue or Butler, but also to look at, the University of South Carolina or Georgia State. Probably not Georgia State, but Georgia State, great school. But they would probably be looking at University of Georgia, for example. I don't know. What do you all think? Nicole, what do you think?
I would have to agree on that. Like with the demographic South, like I talk to a lot of kids in the Northeast and they all want to go south. They just, and to your exact point, whether it's weather or just that they want to be in an SEC, like rah school, there is such a huge draw. Like I'll talk to students on a daily basis that say, I do not want anything in my state. But then as a resident of New York, with the draw to SUNY Binghamton right now, not only from in-state schools, but also from out of state because it's gathering a national reputation. I think that's interesting too. Like, is it going to become even more of a flagship like some of the, like University of Illinois or even Michigan or Wisconsin? Like that seems to be a bigger draw now. And a number of years ago, it wasn't the big flagship, and now it is. So it's interesting to see that big shift, not only in state, but also the draw to different parts of the country. I do also think, and interesting to throw in another piece, is the increase in the number of applications students are submitting. So as far as like, we always encourage 7 to 10 applications, and the number of students that say, well, I'm just going to throw in about 20. Well, that's too many, way too many. You don't need to do that.
You're going on the record. You're going on the record as saying 20 is too many. Yeah, I think we all can agree 20 is too many.
100% too many.
Too many. So it's one of those things of like, kind of like trying to reel that back into and say, like, when a student says like, why not send it? Well, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to reel it in and we're going to have a reasonable number so that it's not an even crazier process.
Yeah. I'm going to give Karen a second to weigh in, but I just wanted to say, we all mean it, you guys listening, friends listening and viewing, like 20 is too many unless you are applying for a very selective kind of program that requires an audition or portfolio or is really like a niche kind of thing that for our, typical programs, engineering, business, undecided, 20 is too many. Okay. Karen, what do you think?
I was just going to say ditto. I'm just going to sit here and like have a cocktail while y'all talk because I was like, yeah, just what they said. So it's only 3:19, guess not. So I would say, yeah, I mean, I think the draw to the South, listen, my daughter's going to school in the South, not the deep South, but in the South, so that she is following the trend there. I think, one of those things is what I was saying, we've all said there's so many applications out the door. And I think what we're one of the things I'm seeing is that just it's harder and harder to get into every kind of college lately, right? Like, my own child did not get into a state institution that 3 years ago, 5 years ago would have been a slam dunk. And so I think a lot of people's state, to your point, the flagship, with finances being what they are, everybody's flagship has now gotten super competitive. And so the thing that used to be your backup plan is no longer a backup plan, right? And so now you're having to seek other options. And I think a lot of the schools in the South are much cheaper too, and they're very generous with aid on occasion. They're not all like that, but that is definitely, I think, also part of the appeal is the cheaper price tag. And the aid potential. So I think that is part of the draw to a lot of those schools in the South. My daughter fit that profile in almost every way, about, all the trends. But yeah, I think just making it harder. I think the trend that I don't love is how unpredictable it has gotten at places that used to be predictable. Places I used to be like, great, and it was a well-known name. Everybody was going to be okay with that on their list is no longer, their, quote unquote safety school. And I think that's made it hard. Now the demographic cliff may make this a moot point in a little bit. I think that's going to reverse itself, hopefully, a little, but we're not there yet, and we won't be for a while.
Yeah, there is like a destabilizing effect that I think people have experienced by the lack of true, it's not the lack, it's the lessening of true safety schools. I think we all can agree that the only constant is change, and we are really seeing that in spades in the admission space for a variety of reasons. But my best advice is that people continue to still do their due diligence, look at data, look at trends, be honest with yourself about the kind of kid you have and your priorities before your kid puts out 20 applications. Pre-work is really essential to making this sort of a process that I think is more fulfilling, more enriching, more positive, more joyful, ultimately more, more options potentially for students. So I don't want to have the last word necessarily. Does anybody want to in our, 35 seconds that we have left?
I will point out that 20 applications has someone who had to pay the fee on these. I remember one of our finance people, there's $70 or $80 a thing. You do, 20 of those, that's $1,400 you just spent for 19 schools you're not going to attend, right? Like
Not a
that's
great investment.
not a great investment. And my biggest plug is have conversations about cost with your kid before you start looking, before you start applying. Make sure they understand what you will and will not pay for, so you're not pulling the rug out from underneath them when they fall in love with some school that they actually can't afford. So that's
Awesome.
my tip for the day.
Beautiful last words. Thank you so much, ladies. I had the best time. Really loved our conversation. It was too short. We will figure out a way to bring it back and expand. But after we take a little short break, my colleague and friend Steve Fernandez-Brennan is going to join us to talk to us about schools in the Aloha State. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. I am here with my friend Steve Fernandez-Brennan. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you. We have not connected on the pod before, though we have known each other for a very long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to shout out your bio a little. You feel free to add in what I'm missing. But prior to coming to Bright Horizons College Coach, you were at Marquette in Milwaukee. You were at Loyola Chicago. Just as a few places. And here at Bright Horizons College Coach, you lead our strategy around our counseling practice. Did I miss any? I know I missed some stuff, but anything you want to point out, Steve?
No, that's great. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So I'm excited to dive into this topic because I have not been to Hawaii, which is my mistake.
Not yet.
Not yet. We need to fix that, right?
Right.
Because there's not only you that lives there. There are other reasons for me to visit as well. But I guess my first question is, because when I met you 18 years ago, you were not living in Hawaii. How long have you
Correct.
been in Hawaii?
So total of 14 years. But I moved back 9 years ago. So can you believe that?
No, I'm aghast.
Right.
For the listeners, I truly am a little speechless. I did not. 9 years is a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus
Yeah.
the additional 5. That's great. What is it? How do you feel, generally speaking, about life in Hawaii for someone who, is sort of new to the island, right? You weren't born there. You were born in
Correct.
Indiana. What's it like?
It's a very unique place.
Yeah.
And it's got multiple layers of culture.
Yeah.
And there's the native Hawaiian culture, the indigenous people who are of this place and space, who had their own kingdom, who had their own nation, and who had their language and cultures and traditions, etc. Right. On top of that, you've got Asian a lot of Asian settlers who've come here, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino. Filipino is the largest single demographic in the state. And then you've got, as part of the US, you've got lots of folks who have come here from the continent or who have, you know, grown up here, but who are of other ethnic backgrounds, right? And so it's a really interesting melting pot of cultures. And I compare it to New Orleans in some ways.
Another
For
like great city. Yes.
great city.
Yeah.
For those of you who are maybe more familiar with that. So it's a place where it's a relationship-based culture. It's not a time-based culture.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so it's really about getting to know people and the relationships that you have with people. There are some challenges of living here, of course, like anywhere, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's remote. You're 5 hours, a 5-hour flight from California. It's a relatively small island. Some people get island fever.
Yeah,
They feel like there's not enough to do, or there's not enough space, or they feel hemmed in a little bit.
sure.
But I don't, those things don't bother me.
Okay. Yeah, there's no cornfields there.
There's no cornfields. Nope.
You are squarely out of the Midwest.
Right, right. Pineapple fields.
Yes. Oh, wow. I love pineapple.
Mm,
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. And
mm.
as we think about colleges and universities in Hawaii, what majors or programs do you think might be most appealing for students to consider who are not from Hawaii?
Right, sure.
Like, what's the
And
draw?
the draw would be, so I did some research for this. I
Okay.
interviewed my neighbor who's from Georgia, who's going to UH. And the draw for him was surfing. And
I'll take it.
right, you know, he said that that was the original reason that he looked into it, but now he's in travel industry management, which is
Oh, wow.
tourism is the biggest part of our economy here in Hawaii, of course. And the travel industry management has its own school within the College of Business, and it's direct entry. And that was really appealing to him because this is someone who wants to work in that industry. This is really, that's a signature program here.
Sure.
Marine
And
bio.
you
Yep,
said,
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. You said UH, which is for everybody
Sorry.
listening. No, you're fine. University of Hawaii. I
Yes.
just didn't want that. I didn't want that to get missed. Keep going. Marine
Yeah.
bio.
So UH Manoa. So there's two UH campuses. There's one on
Okay.
the Big Island, and the schools that we're talking about today, Kira, are on Oahu, where
Okay.
Honolulu is. Okay, just to help
Perfect.
people get some level set.
Sure.
So UH Manoa is the flagship. It's an R1 institution. It's got multiple colleges: College of Nursing, College of Business, College of Education.
College of Nursing is huge, right? Like that's
It
a
is
big one for
huge.
a school to have an accredited College of Nursing. I think that's something that I hope people can lock into. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinesiology is one of the biggest majors that they have here, and
Okay.
exercise science. So that's a popular major. Psychology is the single biggest major here at UH, like at UH Manoa, as it is at many campuses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Certainly for students looking for marine biology, it's tough to beat. So
Yeah.
both UH Manoa and HPU, Hawaii Pacific University, have
Okay.
marine biology. And the research opportunities here, you're on an island in the tropics. The research opportunities here are really unparalleled. So that's
Yeah.
absolutely a draw for some students too.
Yeah. Steve, I want to point out, I'm like so used to seeing your face over Zoom, and we also have a personal connection, obviously, right? I get to see you in person, a few times a year, luckily. But I want to describe to people your background, which is so stunning, and there's like a rainbow, and I know that hasn't been like Photoshop AI'd in there.
Right.
What am I looking at? What's behind you?
So that is the University of Hawaii, Manoa, Hawaii
Beautiful.
Hall. It's it's an administration building. It's one of the oldest buildings on campus, and that's in the center of the UH Manoa campus.
It's beautiful. There's like if you're not watching, there's palm trees everywhere. It's a really stately, unique looking building, gorgeously, with beautiful architecture and a rainbow behind it. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out because I think that is like very much the Aloha spirit, right?
Yes.
I mean, they put their values right out there with their architecture and the setting. It's really beautiful. Speaking of schools, I imagine that most universities in Hawaii have like a majority of in-state students. And if not, that there are many from the West Coast. You just said 5 hours away from California. So that would be the quote unquote, like kind of easier kind of flight. So aside from University of Hawaii Manoa or Hawaii Pacific, any other schools that would maybe make quote unquote make sense for someone to pursue, or those are really the ones that we're thinking would be the easiest to kind of integrate into?
So Hawaii Pacific has 60% of students from out of state.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
which surprised me as I was doing research for this segment, Kyra. And
Interesting.
they used to have a much larger international segment. Now it's about 6% international. It used to be about 20%.
Okay.
But so they have students, they have recruiters on all different parts of the country. They're really, it's a private school. The price point is a little bit higher, but it's not as high as many private schools.
Okay.
So they just don't play the discount game. So basically what's the published cost is what you pay.
Okay, got it.
So for Hawaii Pacific, the challenge there is, or the opportunities, the context there is that it has a pretty small campus footprint downtown Honolulu.
Okay.
And for student life, only 10% of students live on campus.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So as I was thinking about the kind of student who would be a great fit to come to school in Hawaii and to study
Yeah.
here, thinking about someone who's a little intrepid,
Okay.
who's curious about different cultures and people from different backgrounds and experiences, and is okay with a different kind of student life. So UH Manoa has about 14,000 students, undergraduate students. They've got football, they've got all the sports, they've got fraternities
Yeah.
and sororities. It's got more
Okay.
of a typical campus life, but still only about 20% of students at UH live on campus. And
Really
so
interesting.
you have to be a little intrepid and be okay with maybe finding an apartment in Waikiki and taking the bus to your classes in a way that's going to be different than some, R1 schools, flagship schools on the continent.
Sure. And I know, thank you for pointing that out because I was curious about like, a quote unquote, what we would consider to be a traditional college experience, like football or like Greek life, but I know you're a huge fan of one particular university sports team. Do you want to share with everybody what that is? And make the case.
UH Manoa men's volleyball, men's and women's volleyball. They are revenue sports here. They sell out. It's super exciting. They were national champs a couple years ago.
That's awesome.
And made it to the semis this year. But that is definitely part of the student experience. I mean, they sell out that 10,300 seat arena for volleyball. And that school spirit is manifest there. They have football on campus, Division I football. They played UCLA last year. I forget who they're playing this year, but I mean, teams that we're not super competitive against, but it has that atmosphere. And so if you're looking for that, it definitely has that.
Right. Well, and UCLA is now a member of the Big Ten, which
that's
is
right.
Interesting. And yeah, it's not a fair fight, most likely, but I love that they have good competition,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so that is part of the student experience that for Hawaii Pacific is Division II. You don't get that at Hawaii Pacific.
Okay.
The other two 4-year schools on Oahu are Chaminade University, which is a small Marianist school, as is Dayton, University of Dayton. So there's some partnerships there.
Okay.
It's about 1,800 students, and they have direct entry nursing. That's their single biggest program at Chaminade. Then BYU Hawaii has about 2,800 students. And so for a student who's LDS and looking for that experience, beautiful campus up on the windward side. It's in a rural setting, 2,800 students, about half are international. So
well, and 2,800 is so small, particularly for BYU. I mean, the like sort of quote unquote main flagship is significantly larger. That is very interesting that it's tidy. That's a tiny size.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious about I guess my first question, and then I want to just to wrap on like talking about tips for students that decide that they're going to go to school in Hawaii. But I think before we get there, we talk a lot about like visits, right? Like we really encourage people to visit campuses. And I want to say, if you have a student who is considering a school in Hawaii and you've never been, you should probably go. And even though it is a commitment to get to Hawaii for most places in the continental US, right? So, but do you recommend that people, just to get sort of like a lay of the land, that they still try to prioritize, even though I'm certain that none of these schools, are looking for demonstrated interest or something, but just
That's
so people
correct.
know what they're getting into, because it is culturally it's a different vibe.
It's a completely different vibe. And at UH Manoa, for example, it's 30% Asian students, 30% white students, 18% Native Hawaiian students. So there's a real mix
That's so
that you're
cool.
not going to find anywhere
Yeah.
else, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's one thing that they really pride themselves on.
Okay.
I think that visiting is super important because we have in our minds, we've been packaged Hawaii as a consumer good.
Yes. Keep talking. Yes.
And so when you come here, you think of it as this consumer good and these beaches and this laid back vibe and this, you still got to go to class.
Yes.
You still have to put in the work. It's an R1 school. It's a serious academic institution, thinking
Sure.
about UH Manoa and the other
Yeah.
institutions as well, right? And so I think visiting to, first of all, sit on that plane for 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours or 9 hours
So
from
smart.
Boston,
Yes. So
right?
smart. Yeah.
And to see, although in a visit, part of the problem, Kyra, is that it's so beautiful that you're
You
going to
need
visit.
goggles, probably. I
Right.
don't want to say
Yeah.
it's like beer goggles because that's inappropriate. Y'all,
Right.
I didn't say it, but it is kind of like a better
Yeah.
version of beer goggles. Everything looks great. Like a little bit, you're under the influence of gorgeous nature, Mother Nature at her finest.
You're going to tour these campuses and think, why wouldn't I come here?
Yes. Yes.
And especially for students from the West Coast and the WUI schools, right? The Western Undergraduate Exchange.
Sure.
I talked to a student who was here at UH Manoa from Colorado, for whom it was more affordable than to go to his in-state flagship.
Incredible. Yeah.
So now, more affordable in terms of direct cost to the institution.
I get it.
It's not a cheap place to live.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Let's transition into tips.
Yes.
In our couple minutes left, can you
Yeah.
share maybe your top 3 tips for people to be aware of as they are, they're excited, they've made their decision, they've bought, all the gear from UH Manoa. What are some tips that you have?
So you can be in a bubble here if you wish, but I would really encourage students to get out of that bubble and take advantage of the great, rich cultures that we have here,
I
right?
love that. Sure.
You can get an apartment in Waikiki and live with a roommate that you know from home. Don't do that.
Okay. Everybody,
Um,
Steve says, do not do that. I'm co-signing on that. Tell me why.
Yeah, because you're really missing out on some of the richness of the environment and the institution, right? I mean, you can
Yeah.
go to a school back home and have that bubble experience, but while you're here, take advantage of, learn the culture, learn the history,
Be respectful of the culture and the history.
be respectful of the culture and the history, learn how to pronounce things. Maybe go to Bishop Museum and learn all about the history of Hawaii. And really take advantage of that and that richness of the culture here. I think students who are a little intrepid, and are okay with, finding their own path, I think
Yeah.
can find some great options here as well.
Okay.
And know that the dorms aren't great. When I talk to students, I hate to
Okay.
say it,
What's not great about them? Are they old? Are they
they're
small? Are they all of the
dated.
above? They're dated.
All of the above. They're
Okay.
dated. They're working on it. They've got a master plan, building more housing.
Okay.
But housing's tight here. And so you have to be, someone who's okay with maybe, and there's no requirement to live on campus for any of these institutions,
Even a first year.
even the first year. So you can get an
Interesting.
apartment off campus if you wish.
Wow.
There
Okay.
are a number of housing options nearby. They're building more all the time.
Okay.
But just know that the on-campus housing, the students that I talked to, when I said, what surprised you about coming to school at UH, that was the number one thing, was that the dorms weren't great. And I hate to say that, but
Right. Yeah. And I always say to my students, and Steve, I'm sure you are similar, like, if you are lucky enough to grow up in a home where you had, like a warm shelter, amenities, right? You
right,
felt cozy
right.
and safe. There's likely no school that's going to be able to duplicate that. But it does sound like perhaps these places are maybe maybe a little bit below what we are used to seeing in other universities. And listen, best laid plans, keep your eyes open, be
Right.
prepared.
Right.
And also like be ready to dive in, right? I think are the big things. Like let's be open, let's participate in culture, let's be open for adventure. I love like a big word. I love a spelling bee word, intrepid, top tier. And so
Excellent.
let's put our adventure pants on and let's try to like grab every academic experience, but sounds like also
Absolutely.
really get into the specialness of Hawaii. So
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Steve, yes, I will make a plan to get to Hawaii. I don't know
Nonstop
when, but
flights.
I need to. I know I gotta start looking.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. I love talking to you about the Aloha State. I know how much you love living there.
Yeah.
It's been fun to like, I mean, I've known you your whole time there.
Right.
But thank you for this time. I really appreciate it. I hope people learned a lot. Thank you for being so open and sharing so much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Kyra.
Of course. All right. We will be back after a short break to talk to our colleague Chrissy Foran about finance related issues celebrating July as Save Smart Month. Thanks. Thanks for sticking with us, friends. Welcome to the pod, Chrissy. So happy to have you.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. We obviously know each other, but
Yes.
can you share can you share a few nuggets with our viewers and listeners about your background?
Absolutely. So I have been with College Coach with our finance team for about 7 years now, talking with families about ways to pay for college and save for college. Prior to that, for about, 18 years, I worked in financial aid at various schools from Washington State originally, live in Arizona now. But I worked at Gonzaga University, which is a private Jesuit school. I worked at Washington State University, which is a large public school in Washington. Worked at other various schools doing financial aid, counseling families, loving every minute of it. So I probably will do this another 20 years. Who knows if they let me.
I think they'll let you, Chrissy.
I hope so.
All right. So today we're talking about college saving tips since July. Spoiler, I did not know this. July is Save Smart Month.
Yes.
So I really love that I learned something about like another month celebration. And B, like who doesn't want to make the cost of college more affordable? I am
Absolutely.
staring into my near future. I
You
want
are.
to. Right? Woo, I need to schedule a call with you guys. But let's start with my first question, which is what are some things parents should think about when they're starting to save for college? And similarly, parents who are already saving for college.
Mhm.
Applause for those folks who already are.
Yeah, and I think it's great that there's actually a month kind of dedicated to smart saving because, a lot of families may not think about it, but at least it's the one time of year they can go, wait a minute, what should
Yeah.
we be doing? But just remember that time is your friend. So as you're saving, the sooner you can start saving, the more your investment's going to grow. That compounding interest is amazing. If you haven't started saving and doesn't matter when you start saving, if you have a newborn, a 10-year-old, or if you have a sophomore in high school, it's never a bad time to start. Doesn't matter how much you save, whatever you can save based on your budget is fantastic. Remember, it's better to earn interest on money you're saving than to have to pay interest on money you're borrowing. So
for that, yes.
absolutely. If you can put even $10 away every month, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. Anything you're saving is just less you're going to have to pay interest on. So keep that in mind, as you're establishing your savings goals. But I do think, some of the things that might be good for families to do this month. And again, it doesn't really matter right now if your child is a newborn or if you have a sophomore in a high school. Do some, establish a budget. So establish a savings goal. Sit down and really look at your budget. Look at what you're spending your money on. See what you're spending your money on. And if there are things that are more frivolous, see if you can take that away and put that into a savings account. Try to do some calculators on financial aid websites. So, college websites.
Yes.
Every college, really almost in America, is required to have a financial aid calculator on their website that is supposed to help families determine how much they may have to pay to go to school there. So that kind of looks at their income and their assets and kind of tells parents roughly, hey, to go to this state school, we probably think you're going to have to pay this much. that can give families a good indication of, hey, we're not going to get financial aid. We do need to save more. Or, hey, we might get some help, so we don't have to save as much as we thought. So I would be doing those calculators, every year on the college websites of any college you think your child might be interested in, or colleges you think are interesting, state schools, private schools that you're looking at. But do those college calculators, because a lot of families do get help with financial aid from either the school itself or the state or federal government. So not every family has to save 100%. And that's what I think scares families when they want to start saving, is it's too big. We can't save that much. So why would we start?
Why
Let's put our
bother?
money somewhere else.
Yeah.
But can budget that, even if it's $5 to start with, you can always increase your savings. So as your children get older and you stop paying for daycare, or you stop paying for after school care, or any kind of trainings or after school sports, take that money and put it into a savings account. Don't spend it on other things. So look at your budget every year, contribute to it regularly. You can do automatic setup on and automatic withdrawals for a lot of these different kinds of savings accounts. So that makes you more consistent. But just remember, time's your friend. Doesn't matter how much you save. Anything you can save is better than not saving.
Yeah. These are great tips, Chrissy. I think this idea of like people being overwhelmed, to your point, like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to save X amount. And so they don't, to your point, it's so much better to save anything.
It is.
We, save a certain amount per month and have for a while, but I am also one of those people that zeroes out my bank account, my checking account, between pay periods. And so if there's some leftover, I like dump that in there as well. And I think that's it. Like, it really is, it's establishing a healthy habit. Once you establish it as a habit, provided that your budget can sustain that, right? Because so many things happen.
I think you can find things in your budget. I swear almost every family could find $5 or $10 of, hey, do you need that Starbucks tomorrow? Do you need to get your nails done? I mean, there's things in your budget. Oh, I've got the nails.
Exactly. You know that these are important to us. Don't judge me.
You got to have your priorities.
Gotta have your priorities. My kid is like, Mom, can we get a sip? That's what sips. And it's not Starbies anymore. It's sips. I'm just saying to her, like, okay, like we're cutting out one sip a week.
Right. But that makes a difference. That could be $20 a month you're putting into a savings account, whether it's for college or retirement or, whatever.
And it's not a huge sacrifice either.
No.
Get a bubbly and put it in a fancy glass if we want. And it's
absolutely.
So these are really great. And the idea too of like, utilizing like checking college calculators.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, it is time to do that, because I think also you're afraid of the shock factor. Like, oh my gosh, these numbers are going to come at me and I don't know if I'm prepared to receive them. But I do think like the sooner the better. It's like exposure therapy. We want the shock of it to wear down so that you can like zip into action.
Well, and we do, I talk with families on both ends, where I will talk with a family that says, we're not going to get any help with financial aid. We make too much. Our neighbors didn't get any. My sister didn't get any. Yes. Do the calculator. You might find that you do get a little bit. And so you don't have to save as much. But then I have the other end where they go, no, I think we're going to get some help. We don't need to save as much. You might not get help. I mean, with your income. So unless you want to borrow a lot, it's a great time to save. If you can just run those calculators, take 5 minutes maybe to put the information in, and you can run a couple of different colleges, different types, state schools, private schools, community colleges, see what you come up with. I think, and if you do that every year as your income changes, I think that can give you a good, healthy idea of what you might get.
And we do hear a lot of like, well, my neighbor, my sister, my whatever didn't get this. For my first kid, we didn't get. And it's like, people are good people. Like I am sticking to that as a universal fact, that it's
absolutely.
But sometimes it's not even that people aren't telling the truth. They're not making you aware of all of their business, right? Like I think there's a lot of things that are hidden from, others' consumption, which is fair. Like finances, you don't have to be public about them, but I think people do make a lot of assumptions based off of what they think somebody experienced.
There's a lot of myths out there. I spend days and hours on my calls debunking myths that families have heard. So, it's worth it to look into it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's like move into, we've talked about like why and time and all of those things. what kinds of college saving plans are out there? And like, is there just one, or are there multiple ways that somebody can save?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways. When we talk with families, the biggest, I guess, the most popular way that families save specifically for college is called a 529 plan. These are more tax advantaged investment accounts, and they're typically sponsored by each state. So each state will have a 529 that families can invest in their state. They don't necessarily have to. They can invest in any state's plan that they want, as long as that state allows outside residents, and a lot of them do. But 529 plans are very college specific. So the money that you're investing, you are getting tax advantages with that money when you pull it out. However, you do have to, or you should use it to pay for college related expenses, housing and food and tuition and books. If you don't, you're going to get taxed and penalized. So if you're a family that knows my child is going to college, I don't care if it's a 4-year private, a 4-year public, a 2-year community, a trade school, they are going to college of some sort, higher education. Absolutely, that might be a great vehicle to save in because it is specific for college and you do get tax advantages. Some states offer state tax deductions just for contributing to those. So you can save a little money there as well just by contributing if you have a state tax. But some families we talk to want to be flexible. I don't know if my child's going to go to college. They might want to start working right away and buy a house, or they might want to take a trip to Europe. And, so I don't know if I want to save specifically for college.
Yeah.
There are other ways. You can open custodial accounts for your kids, and they don't have the tax advantages that like a 529 would, but there are accounts. Roth IRAs can be good ways to save for retirement, but you can pull some contributions. There's limits, in terms of age and what you can pull out, but that's another really popular way families can save, because with those kinds of accounts, you can use the money for anything. It's not specific to college. But if we are talking, let's say for college, a 529 is probably the most popular because of their tax advantages. And there's another one called a Coverdell education savings account. It's not as popular anymore since the 529 came out. It's kind of the older version. The most you can contribute is $2,000 per year per child. 529, there's not really a limit except the gift tax, which we won't go into. So the Coverdell is another way to save. There are income limits that apply to that, unlike the 529. But yeah, so you can do custodial accounts. You can open savings accounts. You can, CDs. It does. I don't think it matters how you save, just that you're saving. But if you do want to save specifically for college, those accounts, those 529s they offer some good tax advantages to them, and possibly some state tax deductions for contributions.
Sure. And they don't cost any money to
No.
open. I don't believe that I participate in Bright Start.
Yeah. Some states will have like a minimum. They may say you have to contribute $25 each month or something to keep the account open. So it could be a little different in each state, but typically it depends on if you do a direct versus an indirect account. Sometimes you might be paying higher fees, in terms of investing the money, but I think it's a great way to save specifically for college. But if you're not sure if your kids are going to school, or you don't really care if they do, have to go to school, definitely look into a Roth IRA for yourself as a parent. Look into, custodial accounts for your kids. I mean, those can all be great ways to save, and they're not specific to education.
Yeah, agreed. And I know too that my understanding is for 529s that other people can contribute. So, if a trusted and loved adult was like, hey, I want to get so-and-so a gift, and you're like, my kids need anything, that, perhaps they would be willing to make a cash contribution to their 529. I'm only saying 529 specifically because that's what I'm most familiar with, but I assume
well, and again, with the 529s, with the 529s, they typically, those 529 websites have like a gifting platform that families can go in and give a gift.
QR code and like a direct link.
And families can do that. If you have a graduation announcement or a birthday card announcement, or, something that you're sending out for a party or something. A lot of families, I get these now where they say, hey, here's a few things that they might like you to buy them on Amazon, just so that the things that they want. Put in that QR code or put in that link to the 529 and say, hey, we're busy saving. Let your friends and family know that college savings is hugely important to you and to your child. And so maybe presents aren't the best way to help them. Donating a little bit. Plus, if it's a state tax deduction and they're donating into this 529, they can get a state tax deduction as well. So
It's
Can be a really great
powerful.
way to, yeah, and kids can contribute. So,
Yeah.
don't forget that kids can help save too. I mean, parents always do that. Well, we're the parent. Your kids are going to college too. Have them work in the summer. They can work part-time in the summer and put that money in 529s or, any custodial accounts. They can work part-time during the year. So don't forget that kids can contribute, and it probably makes them feel good that they can help pay for their college or pay for whatever it is they're contributing with.
I think so. And that's like my own ignorance that I'm like, oh my gosh, kids can contribute.
Yeah.
You know, this doesn't have to be just adult led,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
the actual
Right.
recipient, prospective student can absolutely participate.
Yeah.
We have a couple minutes left. One of the things I'm curious about, I feel like I don't hear as much about this as I might have, previously, but can you speak in 90 seconds on like prepaid tuition programs? Like what are we doing with those? Are they still around?
Kind of. So there
Okay.
are, I think there's maybe 8 or 9 states left that have prepaid programs. Washington State is one, Florida, Texas. I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but I think prepaid tuition plans can work really. So a prepaid tuition plan is basically where the parent is purchasing credits typically at whatever today's cost is for tuition. So if I have a 2-year-old and I'm in Washington State and I'm thinking, hey, I want my child to really go to University of Washington. I
Yeah.
want them to go to a state school in Washington. Prepaid tuition can work really well because if you have a 2-year-old or a 4 or a 10-year-old and you're locking in the tuition as it is today and you're purchasing credits towards that, when your child turns 18, tuition may have gone up 25% at that point, but you're not
Right.
paying that. You've already purchased, a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years of credits to go to that school. I think it works really well if you're really thinking my child's staying in state. And my parents told me that, hey, good luck. You're going to WSU, you're going to UW, you live in Washington. Like, we're not really looking outside. I didn't really think I had a choice. So for me, it would have been great if my parents were doing that. But if you have any idea of, gosh, I really want my child to look everywhere. So if they want to go to California or to Texas or New York for school, prepaid tuition plans, you can still take the money out, but it doesn't spend the same. So you're not
get
really
it.
getting that huge discount from that.
Sure.
If that tuition goes up, you're still getting your money out that you put in, probably with a little bit of interest, but it doesn't, you're not saving nearly as much as if you were actually using it to go to a state school in your state. So
Yeah.
again,
also
it's a
assumes that
decision.
Yeah, and it also assumes that your child can get in,
Yeah,
right? Like that's
exactly.
this, which is
Exactly.
like a little bit
Yes.
tricky. But
Where 529 plans, you can use that money anywhere in the nation,
right.
outside in Canada schools, or some in Australia and Europe. So you can use that money anywhere.
Awesome. All right, listen. This was super helpful. Happy Save Smart Month, everybody. Chrissy, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. It was
Yeah, of
wonderful.
course. We're going to be back next week with Shannon Vasconcelos. She'll be hosting, and we're going to do a really deep dive on Wellesley College out in Massachusetts. We're going to talk about the university, the college, but also career services there. In the meantime, please rate us on your favorite platform. Listen to back, episodes of us. We have 10 plus years, and look at our blog. We're really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. See you soon. Have a great week, everybody.